Welcome to Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere with your host, Chris Parker.
And welcome back to Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere. This is Chris Parker, and I am having a conversation with Janice Mandel, who's coming in from the DC area in the States. And she is part of the Open Voice Network, as well as I am. She's on the Ethical Use Committee, and I'm on the Architectural Component Committee. And so we are going to have a conversation about voice and some of the uses, particularly around voice for the vision impaired. But before we get to that, I'd like to discover more about Janice and how she got this deep into technology and the stories around that. So Janice Mandel, thank you for joining. Can you share with us what is it that you do and why do you do what you do?
Oh, Chris, on any given day, who knows why I do what I do? But thank you for that. You've heard a lot of people talk about their origin stories and technology and how they grew up with it. Yeah, that was me. I got out of college and there was this internet thing coming around and PCs coming into houses. And well, then my job entailed, I was interested in writing, of course, because an English major does that kind of thing. A generalist does that kind of thing. So I went to a magazine, and it was a really strangest magazine startup I've ever been at. And the fellow who was my editor-in-chief was this very strange man, Steve Ross, who I love to this day. I thought he was so old then, but he was just starting out himself. And his thing was he was an engineer first and a journalist second. Well, eventually he went on to push me into some of his projects in editing. And it was the first online database company I ended up joining, a microfiche company. Remember microfiche?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I joined that as their senior editor. And I was researching books on the side with Steve. Anyway, long story short, I began to acquire articles about the latest technology in biotech, energy, the environment, robotics. And I thought, this is really interesting. And I would then get the stories for the compendiums at the end of year by industry experts. And I just loved it. So I went on to Simon & Schuster and convinced them that I could be their computer book editor. I was told back then, in no uncertain terms, by one of the colleagues, I know what a computer book editor looks like. And this is an acquisitions editor. So flying out to Apple, flying out to Silicon Valley, meeting people and chatting. And they said, I know what a computer book editor looks like, and you're not it. And I'm like, I'm really sorry. I just really like it. And so I ended up acquiring things like the Master Guide to CompuServe. Remember when AOL was out there and they had these wacky things we can go around, and I would dial up, and the whale had just started. Folks with the Whole Earth catalog, you could dial up and hear people talking. It was like Clubhouse, only they didn't separate out the topics. But I fell in love with all that stuff. So that's a long way of saying I was just a writer over the years. I ended up, at PW's, at Cooper's and Lybrand, helping them out because I saw a little ad on the way out the door one day. I was teaching as an adjunct there, one of the first computers and journalism courses. It was mandatory at Columbia School of Journalism. And my friend pushed me in there and said, oh, you could do this. Now, everybody needs this guy in their lives. Steve, it wasn't just me. It was every student, every colleague, every human being he came across. This was just an exceptional human being. And he just believes in people, and he pushes them to their limit. And he pushed me to mine by, I stood up there and I thought, okay, I didn't even know the word imposter syndrome back then. You couldn't even Google stuff. So I just had to go, okay, we're doing this. Anyway, long story short, I just fell in love with the next new thing. I followed it. I began to write for Cooper's and Lybrand, and then later PwC. It's Growing Your Business newsletter, which went out to 30,000 people, as well as Next Wave, which really featured who was investing in what. That came out of the California office. Who was investing in what? And we designed that, Jan Akers and I, figured that out. And for 7 years, that's how long it ran, we wrote about all the cool stuff happening. It was featuring the Money Tree survey about who was investing in what. And then I wrote the articles about the interesting stuff happening. And that's how, Mark Benioff got in there and just all the people I got to talk to. And, like you, that's the biggest adventure. You go out and you exchange ideas with people and it becomes a part of you. And so I value this so very much, technology and what it brings to everybody. I saw it roll out, with PCs and, how the capabilities it gave people. I was doing dial-up, working from home. I had to move out of New York City just when I was getting really excited about being there because my husband works in the energy industry and he had to come down here to the DC area. So here I was, and they said, no problem. You can just dial up, send in your stories, and we'll mail you a check. And I said, well, that'll work. So I was pregnant when I got that first job with them, and it just went on for 20 years, which
incredible
voice network, yeah.
And Janice, you've had an incredible, unique opportunity to observe the evolution of technology across multiple industries and multiple years. Now you are a writer, communications consultant, assisting with multimedia storytelling. How do you bring all of that experience and insight to your work now? So maybe it's a better way of like, what did you learn over that time as far as main principles maybe that you've seen around the use of technology?
Well, I can't make up anything that hasn't been illustrated out there already. How we just have the early adopters and then we get excited and then there's the trough because like, what the hell? So that's where we are. Every time I see a technology that's going to stick, I just have to. And my street cred, I can't help anybody. I'm self-taught. I'm a fanatic. I don't always know the technical details down to the wire because I like the big picture of how things roll out. I can see it. We saw what happened with AOL. And in fact, early on at PwC, when it was Coopers and Lybrand, they were using a dial-up intranet. That's how I got my first column for the National Business Incubation Association that was sponsored by Coopers and Lybrand and went to them online. And it was using, this was before Lotus Notes came out, and which was, Office 12, and this was called Reach. And with the inventors of Reach, I actually flew out to Need Data Corporation and said, hey, the internet looks good right now. You need a front end because like all this, C prompt and the dial, it's kind of complicated and it's really no fun. And they just looked at me and went, thank you so much. Goodbye. And so after that, of course, we know what happened to things like CompuServe and all that great stuff. It was bought and destroyed by AOL. And then, bad behavior happens. So we're at the point now in society where a lot of bad behavior happens. And sometimes it's not just bad behavior on the part of the technology companies. It's that we've developed unchecked. And so this is how I come to the Open Voice Network. I think technology's got everything for us. It can unfold for everybody. And what voice technology has brought right now is, an amazing new, not only just an interface, a way to interact with data technology, but it's a platform as well. And, I think has the potential just to help on every possible level with interacting. And what we like to do is look at in the past how we've handled technology and how we've handled our privacy rights and all those good things through regulation, through rules, through different accountability measures. And life changes, and so this has changed so fast that we need to take a look at it And we need to make sure that the measures are in place so that we certainly control the harms that can be done, because inadvertently with our human bias, there can be harms, and artificial intelligence is one of the things that makes voice work. And of course, there is no better intelligence than human intelligence. They still haven't got this down yet. We still need people. So in my heart, what we're doing on voice is we're just going to use these tools to enhance, in my perfect world, to enhance what we as humans can do, and help us do things a little better, a little smarter, not necessarily crazy faster, but it can be faster and we can get to results better. But the things I look at are the capabilities for accessibility and for inclusion, and to help people navigate their world now. And this is part of the vision conversation I was hoping to have today.
Yeah. What are some of those risks? I mean, is there a main risk around voice, related maybe to AI that needs some ethical considerations or maybe policy making? Like, what's your biggest
Oh,
fear?
yeah. Oh, I've watched technology unfold for so many years now that I'm not afraid of AI. I'm terrified of AI. Not AI as much as machine learning. Okay. AI is the thing that's going to get us in trouble. Machine learning is the thing that can help us destroy the world, because it just keeps extrapolating, learning, and making judgments. In the end, I want human compassion involved with my judgments, and those things can supplement for me and tell me all the things I need to consider. But, I like the humanity of it. The problems are, of course, with bias. We have to train these sets that then make predictions. So if we're making a tool and we're making a thing to say, okay, are you creditworthy? This creditworthy tool may take a lot of things into account. Now, the bunch of people who gave their input to make this tool have been all the same. Maybe they're the guys who work at this big tech company that are of a certain age, that are a certain style, that are a certain type. So in my mind, the diversity that goes into the algorithms, the little formulas that make things then go on their merry way to predict things, can be a little more fair, can be, and help spread opportunity as opposed to institutionalized bias. So it's,
Yeah, I was a little bit of a tangent, but was able to work with some whistleblowers from the National Security Agency who had come over here to Europe in order to help primarily governments use automated analytics and machine learning safely, particularly respecting the right of privacy. And one of the projects that we did with the Dutch government, that I will not mention the actual department, but it was, how can you get the benefit from automated, algorithm driven decision making about people, and these decisions could be life altering. These were not small decisions that were being made. And what I was delighted to see, that actually the Dutch government had come up with a regulation or a ruling that any decision in this domain that was made by a non-human needed to be understandable and explainable. And I thought just those sort of principles were amazing. And when we helped the Dutch government come out with their policy on how to apply AI, we came up with a number of these sort of criteria. And if you were not able to explain in an understandable way the potential impact of bias on these decisions, then please don't use that algorithm. These were some of the common sense things that we built in, but it really was mandated by the government. And I'm hoping that we're seeing more of that around the world. Is that sort of the trend you're seeing on controls, or how can we ensure these things are doing less harm than they're doing good?
Well, that is a great question. That is the multi-million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
I mean, oh gosh, we have to be careful now. There's so much rich information in voice, you know, and we touched on it with your interview. Very good explanation that John gave, John Stein, our executive director at the OVN, Open Voice Network. You know, how do I explain it? I don't know. I don't know. You know, we can hear our health in our voice. We know if somebody has an illness, if they have schizophrenia, if they're depressed, if they have early onset Alzheimer's because they hesitate between words, you know. But the amount of information now that can be conveyed is amazing. And in a multimodal situation, I was just on Clubhouse the other day, and someone from Taiwan said the most controversial thing that they're doing there, the government is, well, they're looking at identifying markers, biomarkers in the skin. And I thought, okay, you know, let's just take it down a notch.
Yeah,
and think about, how we want to live in the world. The point I kind of glossed over before in my mind before jumping in is that I think it's important that we have a sane collaboration on how this is being used and how we all think about it, because too much burden is on big tech right now. These guys, you know, I know it's easy to dump on them, but you know, it's not what they do. They don't regulate themselves. And right now, I know Europe is ahead of the US in terms of how they put together their guiding principles and their, you know, rules and this and that. And, you know, America, we like to do things our way, right? And I am a huge fan of the innovation that this can bring. So as much as I, you know, I'm mindful about the things that the havoc that it could wreak, I am profoundly interested in the good it can do.
Let's pull on that string and see how far we can go. And the origin of this conversation was I reached out to John, but you're raising your finger. Do you want to point?
Yeah, I just wanted to sharpen the point on regulation. Okay, so you guys are ahead. In America, you know, right now we've got legal scholars looking at this, and they're saying, okay, the privacy and the regulation we had on a lot of this stuff is didn't work. Okay, we tried to make it voluntary. People started to mess around with the different kind of disclosures and disclaimers, and right now the average privacy policy is about the size of a Shakespearean soliloquy. And you can imagine how many times a day you hit, okay, all right, I'll do it. You know, so just to get your product. And, you know, maybe we got to rethink a little bit about how we look at each other and what we demand from each other and what we try to get from each other. The part where we like manipulate people, kind of get them excited about doing things and feed them certain things, maybe we have to rethink that a little bit. So, you know, we're at the next stage now on regulation where we say, look, privacy didn't work, but voluntary, it didn't work. But there are a lot of regulations already in place in the US. We have like amazing stuff. We've had voice for years. We've had, you know, people recording for years. So, you know, there are existing regulations. We just haven't rolled up the policy and brought it up to date. It has to be iterative because how fast moving we are. Okay, it has to change as we change, move as we move. And so, you know, I may not be a scholar today in all those things, but I don't have to be. It's changing so quickly that I just try to keep a look at the big picture and to feel how it's going, you know. And right now, I'm not feeling so good and I'm excited. So that's why I'm at OVN, because I don't want to lose the great stuff we can get on this. I want this for my kids.
I'd like to do a little plug for OVN and If you are interested in voice at this level, you can go to openvoicenetwork.org, and there are many committees, and it's really looking at this as a almost as an open source community to come up with standards, guidelines, principles, architectures in order to help people understand voice, but also businesses, I guess, pursue voice either consciously with the big tech players or consciously independent of. And John, in his conversation, mentioned the quote that all AI will be interfacing with voice. So the fact that we're going to be communicating with machines on a daily, minutely basis, or maybe our machines are going to be talking to other machines and getting things done. So one of the reason that we got in touch also through John was the very important use of voice technology for the vision impaired. And I would love to pick your mind on that. And this is specific. There's someone in my family who has macular degeneration. So the sight, if people aren't aware of that, the sight in the front of your eyes goes, darker and darker. You can still sort of see around it, but it's really debilitating and quite frustrating. And so when I started to become more aware of the issues that causes, I said, well, hey, there's this whole community of people that may have opinions, insights, resources, suggestions on how voice could help the vision impaired. So, Janice, I would love you to tell that story on the power of voice in this case.
Oh, this is close to my heart, Chris. I just recently started looking into this. I follow a lot of the products for the blind since a couple of years back. I was helping out with the Voice Summit conference, bringing in speakers. And among the speakers I brought in was Anil Lewis from the Federation of the Blind. And Anil took my invitation to come and speak to technologists about ways that they work with people to test out the products they have in mind for them. That's one of the key things that excites me about this is that, you need input from the people you're actually developing for. And I can tell you, Anil, who is from Baltimore, came to the conference to meet me 100% alone.
And he's blind.
Completely.
Wow.
Blew my mind.
Yeah.
So
well,
he inspires me.
When you mean alone, you mean no guide dog, no, just alone?
No dog, just alone. Just alone. He became blind later in life. He thought his life was over. And then he figured out, oh yeah, that's just one of the things about me. I'm still this guy, and he really is this awesome guy. He's got little adaptive stuff on his cell phone so that, at least he knows he can feel little dots where to hit. And then he works with GPS. So for example, when you hear of GPS, right? We take it for granted. We hit the button, we go with it, and it reads us the directions. Well, that is a form of universal design. And think about it. Why would you just need to look at a map if it can read to you? And it would work for people who can't see it as well. And so that's something that we hope that a lot of people will think hard about. Now, in terms of assistive technologies with AI, artificial intelligence, there are amazing people. Macular degeneration is one of the most common causes of low vision in people. And I know tons of people who have it because there are hundreds and hundreds of them. And one of the interesting things about it is that now we have the kind of technology that can help us orient the world in many ways. There's a free piece of software out there for the blind completely, which is called Soundscape from Microsoft. And that's just flat out, you can have a 3D experience in your world. Now, this is a whole different, this is for totally blind, you want markers in your world. Maybe you can't really see the bus stop, you have certain places. So you can mark places in your on your route, and they will be called out to you. You can, along with a regular GPS directions. And it can have a sensor that beeps a little louder as you get in the direction. You can point your phone so that it can get louder when you're in the right direction. So there are things like that. And there are bold people who use that, but they have dogs and canes and all kinds of things. Well, now you've heard about VR headsets, right? And all those crazy looking things. And so there's a Samsung VR headset. Actually, there's a VR headset that works with a Samsung phone called Iris Vision, IRIS Vision. And that is a VR headset, right? And they've figured out how to work with the technology in a Samsung phone, which clips right to the front. Have this headset on, and it will actually bounce the image that you're looking at back into your eyes to the parts that still work. And it'll fill in the blanks. So now suddenly you will see your faces of your grandchildren, of your loved ones. You will be able to say, read that. And it will read that. You can say, pick up something from the shelf. Get that little product marker. Look at it, and it will read the ingredients for you. So you'll know what you're reaching for in the fridge or in the cam or whatever. So now, as far as I'm concerned, dude, if I'm wearing a hot outfit, I don't want to wear a stupid headset. But in your house, it's an amazing thing. Amazing. And if I really needed it, I would use it, because this is the only medically verified, well, this is what they say, right? System there. It was developed, the engineer who developed it, Frank Combined, he, I don't know if it was his father or somebody's father in the company was an artist. And they couldn't do their art anymore. And this is such a sophisticated level of vision. It was developed with folks from Stanford, from University of Pennsylvania Medical School, and Johns Hopkins. So this is the real deal. These are scientists that look at vision and really understand vision. You go to an ophthalmologist and they fit you out and train you. So this is kind of an amazing thing. But, the part where you're wearing that VC thing, the VR thing on your headset, come on, ask me. I want to be a client if I have to be, but ask me what I want. And so I'm a little fussy because now I'm a modern person and I would like to just be able to, use my glasses. And well, guess what? There's this Israeli company, Orcam, that makes my i2, my eye Pro, ORCAM. This thing is the size of a finger or a lipstick tube, and it has a magnet. And if I had it right here in my hand, I would go boop, and click it to my glasses. And suddenly I would see you. Because now, am I going to explain this specifically the way I can? Iris vision, I've scaped the surface. This is a journalist knowledge, but I can tell you this. The camera on the, you're able to, you have to program in things. It's a little less, let's go back and talk about this financially. Iris Vision is like $2,950. One shot, done, one price. But I see a lot of progress happening with Orcam. Suddenly, it started out as a $4,000 machine, right? And you go, well, yeah, what's your vision worth? Well, yeah, however much money you have, I suppose, but it's a lot of money. But you also have to program in, so it can recognize you. It can recognize, you can train it to say, yep, that's mom, that's dad, that's Jen. Even we're working on cats' names. I don't know which cat you're fed, or gave your medicine to, all that good stuff. So that's all possible. And I guess my whole point is that you could look at, even if you had dyslexia, right? We reverse things, you put that on and it will make it possible for you to read. So it will read whole things to you, stories, texts, you name it. So it's pretty cool. There's a race car driver who actually uses it, but please don't drive with this stuff. Get a
Well,
self-driving
it sounds,
car.
Janice, and I will include these in the show notes, as well as if there's resources, because you've been studying this for a while, as far as voice for the blind and some of these assisted technologies for
Yeah.
vision impaired. We got started down the dark path of evil around AI and ML, yet where we've ended is the glorious possibilities of enabling people to live better, more rich lives, which is incredible. And that's the opportunity. And so this is the balance I think we need to make over time. So
true. And it's not just for the blind, Chris. We have, there's an agency called Possible Agency out there. It's been bought. And we have Christina Mallon, who has moved from there elsewhere in the organization that has bought it. One of the major PR firms, not PR firms, the design firms. And her whole thing, she came to the Voice Conference, and Christina has a rare form of ALS. She's a young, gorgeous woman. She cannot use her arms. And using voice technology paired with physical world objects, she's invented some things at the Parsons School. She comes out of the Parsons School of Design. She has her own little startup that invents things to help her get dressed, to help her function. I mean, she cannot use her arms. She lives independently. She's recently married, and just her life has gone on. So when I hear stories like that, that's when I just get excited. There's a fellow out in, I just met him. Where is he? I'm terrible at names and things like that. But there's another fellow out on the West Coast who has cerebral palsy. And so he does consulting with voice because he's fitted out he's expecting his first child. And so he's fitted out the crib, for example, with a little, he can have his doors open automatically and get the child and all kinds of great stuff. So, this is truly where it's at. Look, it depends who's doing the inventing, Chris, right? What we have to do is elevate ourselves. Like, these are the stories that inspire us. These are the tools. There are now platforms out there that make creating things with AI possible in building block form. So Microsoft has been amazing in this regard. They're the ones who created Soundscape. They're very big on accessibility. So big supporter of the Open Voice Network as well. So shout out to them. Everybody should support the Open Voice Network. Nobody knows these things as well as the people in the industry who make things and the people who are creating the technology, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We did not really go down the dark path together about what could happen. It's dark, Chris. It is darn dark. So, good and the bad, yin and the yang, worth having.
Yeah. There's definitely is a yin and a yang with technology.
Oh, gosh.
Sometimes more yingy than yangy as well. So you're like, what the hell have we done? Janice Mandel, also at janicemandel.com, and it is as it is pronounced. I'll put the link in the show notes. Also to your LinkedIn profile where people get a hold of you. On janicemandel.com is tons of stories going back years. That there's an amazing wealth of insights, and it's all organized by topics. So go check that out. Also, the Open Voice Network .org, which we've mentioned a few times before. This conversation is part of the Open Voice Network series, and so on the show notes, there's also a link to that to see other conversations that we've had related to OVN. So, Janice, thank you so much for joining and sharing your history, your vision, some of the yin and the yang of technology. It's been a pleasure.
Well, I'm so excited. Thank you so much, Chris. It takes all of us to make this work. Thank you.
ebullient.com.